would like to welcome you all. This is our inaugural SAFETY4SEA Talk. In this talk, we will be discussing the crew kidnappings on the rise, one of the hot potatoes of the industry right now. We had the latest IMB Piracy Annual Report revealing that the Gulf of Guinea remains a hotspot for piracy incidents. We had figures in the range of 135 crew being kidnapped across the globe, 130 out of them kidnapped in the Gulf of Guinea. On the other side of the ocean, with respect to Somalia, IMB advises crew to always maintain vigilance. A few highlights from this IMB report, which came out mid-January 2021. As I said, 135 crew were kidnapped across the globe, 130 in 22 separate incidents in Gulf of Guinea. 80% of the attackers were armed with guns, according to the latest IMB figures. And crew kidnappings were reporting in 25% of vessels attacks in the Gulf of Guinea. So there's an alarming trend with respect to Gulf of Guinea. And with respect to incidents in Somalia, there was a year with 0 incidents of piracy and armed robbery in 2020 in Somalia and the wider Indian Ocean. And IMB states that while there are no recorded incidents, IMB warns that Somalia pirates continue to possess the capacity to carry out attacks in the Somali basin and wider Indian Ocean. In particular, the report warns that masters and crew must retain vigilant and cautious when transiting these waters. So I think one of the key concerns of the industry is where we stand with respect to crew kidnapping. And in this talk, we will be joined by 4 industry experts, I would say. Let's start with Danielle. Danielle is the Vice President of Loss Prevention of the American Club. However, she is also serving as a U.S. Navy Reserve Officer for the Coalition Task Force, Centeno, based in Bahrain. So this is part of the International Maritime Security Contract. And she has also experience participating in U.S. Naval Forces exercises in the Gulf of Guinea. Then we have Lieutenant Commander Diego Canovas-Canovas. Diego is the Interagency and Shipping Advisor and the MSCHOA Coordinator at the EU NAVFOR headquarters in Spain. And we will also have Nikos Georgopoulos. Nikos is the Chief Business Development Officer for Diaplous Group, one of the leading security providers across the globe. And last but not least, we have Akshat Arora. Akshat is the Senior Surveyor working with the Loss Prevention Department of the Standard Club. I would like to welcome you all, and I would like to start giving you the opportunity to comment with our first question, which is, where is the industry standing with regards to maritime security, and which are currently the alarming trends? Let's start with Danielle.
Hello, good afternoon and good morning, everyone. And thank you, Apostolos, for having me today to talk about this absolutely important topic of Gulf of Guinea piracy. I have to say that I think that where the industry stands today is we should be celebrating the fact that we were able to combat piracy in Somalia. The numbers right now for Somali-based piracy, I think for 2020 are 0. And I think that that has a lot to do with some of the strategies that were taken and between the EU NAVFOR, MSCHOA, the coalition military, the armed private security teams, and reporting systems that were able to really work together to combat this issue. And I think right now we have to take a look at the Gulf of Guinea and treat it with the same urgency. We really have been putting this issue, I think, on the back burner to COVID-19. So I think this is something that we, as an industry, needs to be brought to the attention and being brought to the forefront. And I think it's a great start having this conversation today.
Okay, Diego.
Yes, good morning from Rota. It's a real pleasure for me to meet all of you representing UNAVFOR Somalia. Okay, so where the industry stands now. So we have the same scenarios as usual, but there is an increase in figure. So this is what's the alarming trend. Of course, in the Western Indian Ocean region, which is the area of operation for UNAVFOR Somalia. So we have also numbers from last year. We observe an increase in reporting as on suspicious activity, but not any piracy-related events classified as such. The last piracy related event was took place in 2019 in April, just 1 month after the transfer of authority from Northwood into Rota, Spain, as a consequence of the Brexit. So, and in that case, it was very interesting to note that there was what I like calling that it was a laboratory case. So there was a mothership, there was a ship protection measure implemented, there was a retasking of an MPRA locating, there was a boarding, arresting suspect, and there is a legal finish in progress now. So for the rest, okay, so I would say that in the Gulf of Guinea, okay, so we have had for a long time a very hot spot. So there is not, we have seen before huge capabilities for the criminal activity. So I can remember motor tanker Kerala in 2014. I was on duty in the NATO shipping center at that time. So it was a 1,000 nautical miles, 3 ship-to-ship transfer. So $10 million of diesel injected into the market. Nobody was arrested. So, and also the violence is quite evident in the Gulf of Guinea. So, so the scenarios are the same, figures are changing. Obviously, the industry now is facing new challenges, above all in the Gulf of Guinea, because these only resources, hardening vessels, circumnavigating sometimes, and reporting. Reporting in the Gulf of Guinea is still a very low level. So 40%, according to my data, to MDAT Gulf of Guinea. That's important. Reporting is a key, is essential. So that's that will be my introduction from the UNAVFOR perspective. I think we will have an opportunity to explain more in detail what UNAVFOR Somalia what kind of contribution has made to the global maritime security that could be exported to other regions in the world. So after 12 years operating.
Yeah, it's something we will be back, because that's an interesting issue. We would like to hear more. Nikos.
Yes, good morning all. Thank you, Apostolos, for the opportunity. Allow me a few words about my background. I was a naval officer for 20 years in the Greek Navy. Most of these years I spent it in the special forces. And then after my retirement, I worked for many years in multinational companies in the industry, security industry. So allow me the arrogance somehow to consider myself as an expert in this business, operationally at least, as I've done this job both sides, trying to board and capture a vessel, or on the other hand, try to protect your vessel to be boarded by a team. So if I can see where the industry is going, the case here is the Gulf of Guinea. Everybody says that there are some similarities from what had happened in the Indian Ocean and what is going on in the Gulf of Guinea. The timing is different, but still, if we want to fight the pirates as good as we fought them in the Indian Ocean, we have to go through the lesson learned and why the Indian Ocean case is a win case, and why, on the other hand, the Gulf of Guinea case is still a problem and a growing problem. We are far from saying that we have managed to at least control the situation there. So I think if we have to find out what to do in the future, we have to go through the Indian Ocean, find out the lesson learned from there, and then examine the differences that Gulf of Guinea case has, because there are differences, and we have to go through them. So this is for the beginning, and later on we can discuss on the differences on how we can do things.
Absolutely, this was one of my next questions. So I would like to thank you for making my life easier by pointing out the next questions. So Akshat, your views.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Apostolos, for giving us that opportunity. Now, you just mentioned about the rising or alarming trend. So that, if we step back into 2020, that was somehow anticipated. If we look into the industry reports or expert opinions, with the onset of COVID-19, the lot of government agencies' focus was shifted towards reduction which led to the reduction into enforcement capabilities. And that's what somehow led to the increase of the pirate attacks, not only in the Gulf of Guinea, but even in the Asia region likewise. The main problem when we look into the Gulf of Guinea, it is instability on the ground. We know that the pirates are coming from a turbulent Niger Delta area. The poverty, corruption, unemployment are the triggering factors which lead the youth towards that direction. And if we look into what is the way forward, I mean, it will take time. And on a short-term basis, what we know for the shipping industry is that there is a dry season in the West Africa, which runs typically from September to March. So in the coming months, what I can foresee is that the attacks will continue. And even though there have been certain amount of payments that are coming from EU or Denmark or different countries, which is a positive step forward. But on a short term, within a couple of months, I foresee that the same trend of attacks will be continuing, just giving the fact that it's a dry season.
Okay, next one, I would like to go back to Danielle and of course Diego, and I would like to ask, what have we learned out of the lessons learned for the naval forces, and which of these lessons you think may be applied to the Gulf of Guinea? I would like to start with Danielle and then go to Diego. What are your views? Are there any lessons to be learned, any best practices to be applied in the other part of Africa, in the other side of Africa? Danielle.
Yes, I'm glad you asked this question. So I've actually participated in exercises in the Gulf of Guinea, namely the Obangami Express back in 2015 and 2016. Those exercises actually use a framework of the Yaoundé Code of Conduct. And what they've done is essentially broken up the coastal states into zones. So there's about 4 or 5 countries to each zone, and the Gulf of Guinea nation navies are then responsible for patrolling those zones and passing information within that zone. And I think that they did show some success with this model. At first, we did see some numbers drop down, but I think there's still more to be done. Coalition navies in the area are always great, and they do they do the job. But the Navy's vessels can't always get to the incident fast enough. And vessels are going to then be forced to hold off pirates until they can get there, until they can get that assistance. So what we need is really hardened vessels to prolong that time, and also that mixture of military presence in the area.
Okay. Before we go to Diego, there's an ongoing discussion going on in social media, and there's also some proposals that we might suppress the Nigerian pirates, for example, in the Gulf of Guinea attacks in international waters in Gulf of Guinea, by a task of a fairly small geographic area compared to the north, to the Indian Ocean. Sorry, we can have something like 2 frigates with a helicopter, 1 maritime patrol aircraft, and robust anti-piracy mandates, and that could be a potent deterrent. I'm just saying, just to roll out the discussion, it could be something significantly smaller than the substantial forces deployed by both the US Navy and the EU in the Indian Ocean, in the Horn of Africa. Diego, your views, what are the lessons to be learned from the Horn of Africa that may be applied to Gulf of Guinea?
Well, so indeed there are a lot of differences, but there are many lessons, of course, learned. So Shared Awareness on the Confliction Forum that was created for the first time in Western Indian Ocean region. It has been a success, and now it has been replicated in the Mediterranean Sea with IRINI operation from the European Union regarding Libya. So Shared Awareness and the Confliction is essential where they are quite different naval forces operating in an area and fighting the same criminal activity, the same issue, which is piracy in this case. So it could be replicated in could it be replicated in the Gulf of Guinea? Yeah, that's for sure, because at the end it is an informal way to address the confliction and cooperation. So next, the coming one, we are considering the next one in June in Western Indian Ocean region. So another point is the very, very well consolidated relationship with the shipping industry based on trust. So I think that we have pioneered this. So we have built up a very strong relation with the shipping industry. So the shipping industry is one of the most important stakeholders in the maritime domain when we are talking on maritime security. So that's another thing that could be and should be replicated in other scenarios in the world. So, of course, maritime security capacity building. Okay, we have been working as member states individually from the European Union in the Gulf of Guinea for a long time now. Yeah, but also we have developed in Western Indian Ocean region a good maritime security capacity building program. Now we are working continuously on that now with the Germany Coast Guard. And yeah, okay, so force flow is a problem everywhere. So we don't have asset. So member countries don't put many assets on this kind of operation. So from the European Union perspective, now we have a pilot project. Now was decided by the Council. So it has just launched the pilot. It's a coordinated maritime presence in the Gulf of Guinea. Will be the first time. So that means that member states deploying the Navy there, Spain, France, Italy, namely. So they will be coordinated from Brussels, from the European Union military staff, from a very special cell. Of course, legal finish, Apostolos. Legal finish is essential. If we don't have a legal finish, nothing will happen. So, and then also it was started by NAVFOR Somalia in Western Indian Ocean region. So we have two agreements with Kenya and Seychelles. Well, the agreement with Seychelles is working very well. Now there is a legal proceeding regarding the last piracy-related event. Of course, Nigeria is not Somalia. We don't like calling any state a failed state. It doesn't exist. They do their best, and we provide our support. Yeah, but obviously the governance is different, and the problem on shore are different. Yeah, but these are more or less okay. Some of the lesson learned in after 12 years that could be replicated in other areas of the world.
Okay. Nikos, what are your views? What are the similarities and differences with respect to Horn of Africa and the Indian Ocean and the Gulf of Guinea?
All right. I would like to be a little bit more practical and see what were the mitigating measures that really brought the difference in the Indian Ocean, and if that could be applied in the Gulf of Guinea. So if you go a little back in the past and see how the whole problem started and the first mitigating measures, I think the first measure was the increase of the insurance premium. Did they help?
Nikos,
no.
How old? When are we going back to 2005, 2008, 2010?
I would say 2007, 2006, when the problem started in the Indian Ocean. So the first reaction of the industry was the increase of the premiums. This didn't help at all because it was refueling the ransom pile. and it was reducing the awareness. This is what is going also at the moment in the Gulf of Guinea. Then in 2008, we had the involvement of the international forces, the Operation Atalanta, the MSCHOA, the reporting system, the UK. Did it bring difference? Yes, definitely. We have the IRTC protection. We have critical interventions by the international forces, and that helped a lot. But at the same time, what happened? It was the increase of the high-risk area that pushed the pirates to rearrange their operational status and the modus operandi and start having the capability to attack at a large, far from the area that was protected. Then we have the unarmed teams. Did the unarmed teams help? Yes, they helped, but there was no equivalent in the use of force. So it couldn't really bring the difference. What brought the difference was the armed teams on board of every vessel. I think that was the critical difference that brought it starting winning, it was becoming a winning case. Why? Because the armed teams, they offered offensive capabilities, and it was the most, by far the most effective measure. Now, if we go to the Gulf of Guinea, there are issues there. And as the other members described, there are issues with the legality, there are issues with the compliance. The big problem is Nigeria, because Nigeria is, for the moment, says that I will take care of that. It is my problem, I will solve it. And this is the perspective of Nigeria for the moment. But on the other hand, NIMASA, the maritime domain and the maritime administration for safety is not ready yet. They have spent a lot of money in acquiring assets for that, but it's not operational yet. On the other hand, they have strong terrorist groups in the north part, like Boko Haram, so they have multiple problems. And at the end of the day, they have not been very effective. That's why we saw a change, a big change last week, that the president changed all the staff of the armed forces as a measure to show that he would like to bring the difference and make more things happen more easily. So I think for the moment, the lessons learned that we have from the Indian Ocean are not applied yet in the Gulf of Guinea. And there is where I believe we should work on, in trying to implement similar measures, similar cases like we did in the Indian Ocean.
Okay. Akshat, your views? Any similarities, differences? What do you think?
Nikos nearly like echoed the whole comments that were coming on the same question. So it's exactly the same. What I can relate to is how industry organizations, shipping industry organizations, how they're involved, or they need to be involved rather with authorities. And I believe that is the case in way of the Deep Blue project, which is currently in progress, and it is expected to be implemented later down this year. We still have to see how positively that implementation will be. But then there have been some more happenings that have happened just recently, like a few days back when Nigerian president replaced all his chief of defenses. We still have to see how positive of a development that is there. Now coming, Nikos mentioned about the insurance. Yes, we know that the Lloyd's Joint War Risk Committee extended the high-risk area of the west of Africa. But then apart from that, there has been a lot of engagement, particularly with the shipping sector from the international group of P&I clubs that I would like to highlight. Is the international group of P&I clubs published the piracy FAQs for our shipping operators. And apart from that, way back in 2014, the international group worked on the GuardCon, which was a BIMCO's GuardCon contract, and specifically tailored it for the West African region. And presently, what I can tell you is that there are considerations, because Nikos mentioned that the provision of armed guards is not available in Gulf of Guinea, especially in Nigeria. and the only provision that is available is security escort vessel. So there are considerations to come out with a similar sort of a contract or framework where the due diligence checks and all those criteria will be incorporated, and work will be there for the ship owners or ship operators to sign with those security escort vessel operators. So that is the work that is being done from the industry organization side.
Okay. Akshat, you would like to add something?
No, that's from my side.
All right. Danielle, your views, similarities and differences. What are your views towards what can be applied over there besides the the naval forces?
Well, I wholeheartedly agree with the group that the security teams, armed security teams on board are absolutely vital to combating this problem. And I think we have some countries taking steps in the right direction. I believe Benin and Togo are allowing security teams or requiring security teams on board their vessels in the anchorage. I think this is a step in the right direction. And I think this is where we need to go in the Gulf of Guinea. Of course, insurance is another issue. Insurance is right now, I think, being completely misunderstood as maybe incentivizing the problem, but we're absolutely not. And I think insurance right now is providing some kind of answer, some sort of protection for these kidnappings that we're seeing. It's absolutely not a risk that insurers want to take. They're not accepting the risk at all. And really, by expanding the HRA, I think we are making a statement that this is something that every operator should be concerned with. The American P&I Club has some general anti-piracy figures, some general anti-piracy principles and actions that should be taken, namely the risk assessments, voyage risk assessments. I think this is something that is going to have to be done differently in West Africa than it was done around the Horn of Africa. So of course you have the wet and dry seasons that need to be considered. So weather and an uptick of incidents during certain times of the year should be considered. In addition, physical characteristics of your vessel. Also, the international trade in that region. What the product is. Well, right now we're seeing an uptick in crew kidnapping. So essentially, any type of vessel is a target, whether it's a container ship, bulk carrier, tanker. We're seeing more ships being targeted because of what they're targeting. They're targeting now people for ransoms and for insurance payouts, essentially.
Okay, thank you, Danielle. Diego, your views. What do you think? Do you have anything else to add with respect to similarities and differences in these two fronts?
Well, so I would like to make a comment. I fully agree with Nikos and Danielle and with our other colleague. So in general, but armed security team is a difference, and it is, and okay, there is a hot question now on this. So, but at the end, so armed security teams should be the very last resource, indeed, because of the implication it has. So this is so a vessel. Let me remind all of you that you know that very well. So a vessel could be a BMP compliance without having any private armed security team on board. But the fact, reality is reality, and facts are facts. So in Western Indian Ocean region now these days, so we have 30%. Okay, so we consider the use of private armed security team on board only for the high risk area. Okay, so that around 30% of the total traffic are using private armed security team on board. So we are now in the previous level before the outbreak. So but at the end, again, so also we see that that a lot of traffic circumnavigate the high-risk area in order to avoid the costs incurred by hiring private armed security team on board. So there are references, there are differences, of course, but also there are some models we have developed, as I said before, that could be replicated. And in practical terms, okay, the registration provide us and provide to our naval force. So exactly the ship protection measure implemented by vessel that could help us define and identify vulnerable vessels so that we will be able to use our naval asset in a more efficient way.
Okay. Next, a quick one I would like to ask. We've seen the extension of the high-risk area. Should we need more, let's say, best management practices, more guidelines for the stakeholders involved? Should we educate the local authorities a little bit more of the problems and the implication of the problems? Should we seek to, let's say, raise the awareness of the crews? I'm sure that the crews cannot be private armed security personnel. I'm sure we've known that from the Indian Ocean, but should we proactively aim towards something? Nikos.
Look, one of the big differences in the Gulf of Guinea is that the private industry is not allowed to participate in the Gulf of Guinea. The countries are only allowing their own people, their own Navy guys, coastal guys, to be on board the vessel. So all the armed teams are coming from either the Nigerian Navy or the Tongolese Navy or the Benin Navy. So that is also creating a capacity problem. So if we would say that there is a solution, put an armed team in every vessel sailing through this Gulf of Guinea, all the area there are two problems. First of all, can the local authorities supply all these armed teams? Do they have the capacity to support that? And the second question is, most of the vessels are sailing from a country to country. So you have a vessel which is sailing through Tongo, then it enters sailing through the Benin area, and then sailing through the Nigerian. So even if we could use the local armed teams, we have to switch at each border from one team to another team. So these are difficulties because we have multiple countries. We don't have a common policy into that, and they all believe that there is their own problem, and they can solve the problem within their own territory. But it's not only one problem, one country's problem. For the industry, for the stakeholders, it's a Gulf of Guinea problem, a Gulf of Guinea area problem. So it's where I see that the involvement of the international forces could bring the difference, because that could unite, it could come up with a common policy that all the countries would use the same approach, and the approach would be how to protect the vessels from the armed pirates. This is the difference. It's not easy. Believe me, it's not easy. Even if it's a small boat, especially the Nigerian pirates are very, very aggressive. It's not like the Indian Ocean. The Somali pirates were not that aggressive. They were very good with the boats. They were very good jumping over the ships. They were not very good with the guns. That's why when they could not really attack the vessel when there was an unarmed team. It's not the same thing in Nigeria. And coming back to the question, what the crew can do, I think the crew can do many things preventively, and that would allow the team to go to another vessel. It's like the alarm system that we have in our houses. If the thieves will go to one house anyway, if they see that it's not too easy to go to one house, they will go to the other. So if we can really show that we have an awareness, we have protective measures, they are in place, we are there, we have a proper citadel procedure, because we saw that lately that that procedure was not, at the end of the day, was not very effective. We don't really know what happened, but as a result, it was not very effective. And we saw even casualty of a crew member. So I think, coming to one of your questions, do we have to update the BMP? My belief is not. First of all, let's implement properly the BMP and the guidelines and the regulations, and then we see if we have to improve something. Okay, we may have to improve something, but as a beginning, let's implement the BMP and make sure that we have all the measures in place. And then we'll see what we can do. But I still believe that it will be very critical and important, the implication of international forces. That could bring the difference, especially because we are speaking about different countries with different policies.
Nikos, may I ask if you have any sort of data to share with us with respect to the effectiveness or efficiency with respect to implementation of these BMP in Gulf of Guinea? Do you have any sort of data to share with us? In terms of percentage, let's say 50%, 70%, 90%, how effective do you think these BMPs are implemented on board ships? Do you have any sort of indication to give us? Like,
not really, because the problem in the Gulf of Guinea is we don't have all the information. This information is not shared. Even if it's passed to the authorities are not sharing this information. What we can monitor is the attempted boarding, and this is more or less something like 50%. 50% we see that there are attempts than attacks, and really boarding. The boarding is even more or less. Okay, I don't have available the figures that would show them how many attempts, how many boarding, how many attacks. But at the end of the day, you cannot really measure what was the level of awareness or the level of protection in a vessel that doesn't really have an armed team, or there is no reporting system that there was an armed team aboard or there wasn't an armed team aboard. You can only imagine by the result. I mean, if you have an attempted and they didn't succeed in boarding, that means that that vessel had some kind of security measures. It had implemented some of the BMP proposed measures.
Yeah, they had some sort of security measures, fully agree, but they had some sort of security weakness that the guys exploited. But I understand what you're saying. It's difficult to get to a figure or something like that, and it's always difficult to monitor. Akshat, your views. Should we aiming in, let's say, towards getting more, having better implementation, discussing more, collaborate a little bit, educate the stakeholders? What should be the way forward?
Best management practices for West Africa, that book guideline, I believe is very comprehensive, and it just came into force. It was launched somewhere in March or April of last year. And since then, quite recently, OCIMF has come out with the bridge cards as well, which is quite handy for the bridge watchkeepers to use. Now, on paper, we can have as much as you want to have, but it is as good as the implementation on board. Now, where exactly is the issue? Based on our experience from the P&I Club, what we have seen is there is a lack of clarity in terms of who's going to supply the security stores, or who's going to supply the extra steel or razor wires, or who's going to pay for the vessels or armed guards. So all these there's lack of clarity in the charter party. So that provision has to be very clear in terms of when owner operator is getting into a contractual obligation. So that charter party terms need to be very clear, stating who's going to bear the responsibility. Because many a times the ship goes and the BMP talks about layers of defenses, but then those layers of defenses are not there, or even if they are there, they are not robust enough, and that's why it gets easily breached. So that is the aspect what I feel on the contractual obligation needs to be clear between the ship owner as well as the charter. Who's going to supply the stores? It requires considerable amount of investment into the ship to make it harder.
Okay, thank you, Akshat. Danielle, your views?
Yeah, I agree. I do agree. I think the latest update to the BMP for the Gulf of Guinea was made just in March of 2020. And I think the problem essentially is still the same, approaching, now almost March 2021. But I think, like every problem, we should be approaching this issue at the root core. And the vessel can only do so much to harden. And if you followed all of the BMP guidance, essentially as it's written, we still have a big problem at its core. And I think, 80% of these pirates are armed. So how do we get their guns away? How do we take away their guns? How do we stop this issue of the gangs? I think the latest report said that there was up to 5 gangs, up to 5 attacks at one time, which tells us that there may be at least 5 gangs operating out of this Niger Delta. So how do we combat the issue that people are actually getting brought back to Nigeria and held? So some of these core issues, I think, is what we really need to focus our attention on. Arming the vessel and hardening the vessel is definitely is our last resort, really, but it's important. But I think we really need to start looking at these issues at the core and starting as an industry to find some real solutions.
Okay, Diego, any comments on that?
Well, I think if we look at the BMP, regarding BMP, so from the first one in 2009 through the current one, the number 5, so we have seen a revision on average every 2 years, with the exception of the 2 first that was approved in the same year. Okay, so there has been a new BMP edition when there has been a change in the scenario, and they have included the hardening in detail, hardening measure in detail. We have seen also included different threats, and we also, when we have put a special emphasis on risk assessment when planning the voyage. So regarding BMP5, BMP5 already has, okay, it's mine threat, waterborne improvised explosive devices, also including anti-ship missiles and piracy. So, okay, do we have a new scenario? That's something we have to discuss. But we have seen the shipping industry providing additional update and additional guidance for vessels transiting our region, Western Indian Ocean region. So the last one was at the beginning of January. And then, okay, so do we need a new BMP? So first, we need to promote them, to encourage the shipping industry to implement it. And of course, in the case of the Gulf of Guinea, so I say again, so my point is that the reporting is a very low level. It's a very low level. If we don't have a high level of reporting, we will not have a fully understanding of the situation. So we cannot plan any reaction. That's my view.
Okay. Now, my next one is a rather provocative question. I would like to thank you for bringing your views forward. We've had very nice views. I would like to ask you, what is the impact of COVID-19 with respect to what is going on in the region, also in the Indian Ocean and the Gulf of Guinea? But has it acted as an accelerator? Has our, let's say, the stakeholders who are very busy trying to sort out their operations, not focusing enough on the problem over there? Because what it seems to be lacking is better coordination. Because as Nikos correctly pointed out, it's not a fragmented problem, it's not a one nation's problem, it's a regional problem, and the industry has not properly being successful in bringing that towards maybe in other levels, maybe the UN level, maybe bringing all these commercial interests of all these nations. We've seen the vessel with crew kidnapped a few days ago from Turkey, and we've seen President Erdogan making very strong comments and saying we will take care of it, etc., etc. It's not a one nation problem, it's our industry's problem. So I would like to ask you, what do you think is the impact of COVID-19? Has it acted as an accelerator? Because the stakeholders have been not very vigilant in taking care of this. Nikos.
It's different in the Indian Ocean. It's different problem in the Gulf of Guinea. In the Indian Ocean, we are all running our own people. The shipping industry is managing their crews, so they do and they control what they do or they cannot do for their people. And the same for us, the PMSCs. It's for us to trying to take care of our people and make sure that they are healthy and there is no fear of infecting the crew members. So it's a matter of our own problems and how we can manage our own people. In the Gulf of Guinea, it's different because you are dealing with other people. You're depending on the Nigerian government. You're depending on the assets that the Nigerian government is supporting to the problem. So, and these countries are suffering a lot from COVID. Nigeria was during the first wave, it was one of the worst countries in the area that faced huge problems from COVID. And I believe, my personal belief, they still have problems. It's not very well announced, and it's very difficult to monitor. If you know Nigeria, know how Nigeria works and operates, you'll understand that it's nothing. You can really not understand what is going on in that country. So for us in the Indian Ocean, I think we managed to mitigate properly the problem. And I think a typical health problem became a managing problem of our crew members and how you can manage the human factor, because what we are facing these days in how we can really manage our people who are very much tired from almost a year involved in such a difficult situation. And I think that's during these days, it's more of how we can manage our own people and make sure that we have the quality of the service that we require to give it to our customers. So getting back to Nigeria, I think the problem is increasing. And I think I want to come back to what Danielle said, the issue, and get back to the root cause. What is the root cause of causing the problem? And the problem is Nigeria and the status of the country. You've spoken about 5 guns that are operating. My personal belief, it's more than 5. And it's not, they're so much complicated, the relationship between the country and the governmental forces and the pirates. It's the communities, as we all know. Communities are the people who are living around the Delta, and at the end of the day, they are supporting somehow the pirates. They probably lead from the pirates. We have been involved in several cases of kidnaps that we had to release people from the jungle. And what we have seen is that in reality, the local people are somehow supporting this because they live from that. They gain money from that. Even the small villages, they get money from that. So it's very difficult for the government to be involved into that situation. And this is what is causing the problem. The situation of the people and the poverty that they face and the unemployment in the young people. So it's very easy. Just pick up a small boat, put 5, 6 people with a gun inside and get out in the sea and try to find one vessel. At the end of the day, you will manage to find one vessel that you can board up, and you pick up 2, 3 people and you take them back to the jungle. And that will earn you how much? 50, 60,000 per head. That's the standard.
Make it sound very easy. It's not that easy, but we understand it's not that complex. But you make it sound extremely easy, which I'm sure it's not the case. But we understand.
Allow me, Apostolos, we have seen attacks more than 200 miles off the coast of Nigeria. To make an attack with small boats, more than 200 miles, capture the vessel, and then be able to sail back to the coast, 14, 15 people from the crew members alive, because you need them alive to get the ransom. So it's not an easy operation, I understand, but it shows the capabilities of these people.
Correct. So I do understand what you're saying. They have the support of the local stakeholders and so on and so forth. I understand that. Akshat, your views.
Apostolos, I started my comment with the COVID-19 because that was something that was at the onset of COVID-19. It was very much anticipated that the focus of the government agencies will shift towards different direction, and which could lead to an increase in the sale. And we have seen that in 2020. Now, there has been a wide-ranging effect of COVID-19. The crew are in crosshairs of piracy, kidnapping, and stranded because getting crew change. The crew change is not being facilitated. And there is a social media trend going on, hashtag Seafarers Lives Matter. And this is basically, it's not a positive thing for the shipping industry, or for the image of the shipping industry. And that's where I believe that all industry stakeholders need to come together and work in a cooperative manner or a collaborative manner to enhance, because if the similar sort of a trend continues, it's not going to play in favor of the shipping industry as a whole. We have already seen that the youngsters are not inclined to join shipping industry. The trend is going down. And if these sort of trends will continue, then we will be having going forward. So we, as the industry and each and every industry stakeholder, whether it be charterers, shippers, ship owners, operators, management companies, and industry organizations, they all have to come together and drive this to make it work.
Okay, Danielle?
So one thing that is alarming to me is that COVID-19 has affected the wait times, I think, in these ports. So, so this has been an issue for vessels coming in. And as you know, if you've ever transited this part of the world, even before COVID-19 or in normal practice, is typically waiting for berth for days before you can come in. Well, COVID-19 has compounded this issue. So now you have to consider quarantines for the crew, certain amounts of times. So it's leaving our vessels out in these anchorages for long periods of wait times and leaving them vulnerable. So that's one big effect, I think, that COVID-19 is having, right? You're seeing patrol vessels. These pirates are smart. They have vessels that patrol and are out there looking for targets for their gangs, and that is their sole job. So things like that, I think, are now the new normal, thanks to COVID-19 and the impact it's had in that region.
Okay, and Diego, your views with respect to impact of COVID-19?
Yeah, that's very interesting for somebody in the middle of our research. Well, so we can correlate a lot of things, but sometimes we correlate too many things. Okay, so the impact could be considered on several fronts at the same time. So on the shipping industry, well, so at the beginning, so they managed to handle with the crew changes. That was one of the most important problem at the beginning. So PMC, so the private armed security team on board at the beginning. So borders were closed. Port, airports, so there was an extension of the tour on board, and then there was a decline, a very hard decline in the use until May, that there was a recovery when the new protocols were implemented. Regarding the traffic, okay, we saw in the Western Indian Ocean region, so at the beginning was difficult to discriminate between the Chinese New Year impact, black sailings, and the coronavirus. Then there was an increase in tankers traffic because of the drop in the crude oil prices, and then there was a very dramatic until the traffic stabilizes, and then in September, because of the recovery of the global demand, perhaps the traffic started to increase. But for me, the point is that if we consider the worst of the possible scenarios, I will have to go back to the financial crisis in 2008 and 9 and what's happened at that time. That will be the worst of the scenarios, I know. Yeah, but what is happening inside African countries? Do we know that? What their conditions are? So in Somalia, we have a locust. We have a terrorist group, Al-Shabaab. There was a closure of borders, so the criminal networks are interconnected because of the clan structure. So should we expect an increase in piracy after coronavirus, or we will look back to 2009? It is quite possible. It is quite possible. So this is a scenario we have to consider. It is a must for us. So we are pushing inside the OHQ to review this with our Intel section to find some indicators. Okay, last year we have an increase of reported incident. Okay, so suspicious activity rise from 21 to 32. And also there was an increase in reports that at the end they were classified as non-maritime security events. So indeed, we think that there could be an impact of coronavirus on the maritime domain on different fronts. So the private sector, the shipping industry, traffic, this is a global issue. So traffic, maritime traffic, shipping is a multiplier of the GDP. So what's happened with GDP in Somalia? So remittances are 20% of the GDP. So if there is a lockdown in Western Europe, in the USA, so there will be at the end a fall in remittances. And so the security situation inside Somalia will suffer a lot. Yeah, there is a huge impact. That's my position.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, it's time to wrap up. It's time to close this talk. And I would like to ask my last question. I would like to ask each and every one of you. Let's give me in less than 30 seconds, if you wish. I would like to ask you if you could change one thing, and you have to select only one thing that you change in order to eliminate crew kidnappings. It's impossible, I'm just saying for the sake of the argument. If you could change one thing that could eliminate crew kidnappings, a thing that would have a significant impact towards that end, I would like to ask you, what would it be, that thing, and why? Nikos, what could you change?
Looking back to the way we managed to control the situation in the Indian Ocean, I would say one thing that could bring the real difference is to have an equality in the use of force, which means bring armed teams on board the vessel, or in escort vessels, could be the same thing. So we can have an equality of force. In that way, that will make it more difficult for them to attack the vessels, and in that way kidnap the crew members. So my suggestion would be somehow to involve all the stakeholders and all those who can bring a difference. And the difference could be by making the use of force at the equal level, from the vessel to protect, from the team who is protecting the vessel to the team that it's trying to board the vessel.
Okay, thank you. Akshat, 30 seconds.
For me, what I know is that particularly in Nigeria, more than 60% of the youth are unemployed. So what we need to be focusing is more on stability on the ground. Maybe work together with the Nigerian government. It requires an international effort where more stability, more employment opportunities for the youth, so they are not driven towards the crime or towards taking lives at hand. That sort of an approach. So we need to work towards driving stability in the Western Africa region, and this requires a global effort.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Sorry, is that my turn?
Yeah.
So I will say that in my role with the American P&I Club as loss prevention, as well as in my role as Lieutenant Commander, Maritime Trade Operations of IMSC, one area that I see as such a wealth of expertise and knowledge and a great resource is these security risk advisor companies, such as Nikos being one of them. They're excellent resources. I would equip every ship owner with one of these experts and who can help assess the risk to that vessel in the region that they're going, and really evaluate it as a whole. And I would sleep, I think myself and many company security officers would sleep well at night knowing that you have good advice that these companies provide. That's my position.
Thank you. And Diego?
Yeah, I think it is essential joint action between state and the private industry. That's quite clear. So that what makes the difference in the maritime domain, fortunately. So BMP compliance in full, from my view, BMP compliance in full, a good risk assessment, an incident report, and incident response. That's what could also make the difference.
Okay. I would like to thank you all very much. And I would like to thank our viewers and trust to see you one of our future talks. Thank you very much. Okay. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
everybody.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Bye-bye.